Hello and welcome back to another season of SHU Doing. I'm your host, Aaron Burrell, alongside
Paul Guarino. We're back, season 2.
This is big, Paul.
Season
we
2.
are back for another season, and we have another host of elaborate guests. This season, we are starting with Justin Lear. Justin, thanks for joining.
Appreciate it. Glad to be here, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you coming.
Of course. So, Justin, let's start with your story. Where are you originally from, and how did you end up at Sacred Heart?
I grew up in Jefferson, New Jersey, which is about 45 minutes to an hour west of New York City. And I came to Sacred Heart after graduating high school all the way back in 1997. And my initial goal when I got here was I'm going to be an athletic trainer. I'm really into sports. I thought this was going to be like a career the moment I came to campus. And after doing not so well in human anatomy and biology classes, I figured it might be a good time to pick a different field and career. Mm-hmm. So after my freshman year, I decided to get into media studies and communications. And the reason I came to Sacred Heart originally was, growing up in New Jersey, I wanted a school that felt far enough away, mm-hmm. but also close enough that I would be able to come home on weekends or whenever I wanted to see my family without, having to fly somewhere.
And when you make the transition into communications, did you immediately know this is the field for me? This is where I'm going to spend, my career?
I had hopes for it, but I wasn't convinced. There was a lot kind of going on in the industry back then. It was a lot of the legacy TV network stations. I mean, everyone, it was like ABC, NBC, CBS is what most people paid attention to. And obviously back when I came here in the fall of 1997, the internet and websites was not a big deal. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of an afterthought. The biggest thing at that time was kind of video and film production. And you kind of had a music industry, which, was just going through, the Napster and LimeWire. Yeah, and I mean, and then obviously soon would be the introduction of like iPods, but it was a much different time where you didn't really think about what my focus was going to be. It was mostly about video production or media production.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What were your first couple internships?
So when I came here, and even when I was in high school, I had friends that were in punk rock bands, and there was a really big community of you would go to shows and see these bands on weekends. And what really attracted me when I started to get involved in the media studies part of Sacred Heart was the opportunity to do the student radio station. And there was also part of I think it was the Student Government Association or club at the time, where you had funding to bring live bands to campus. So I was really intrigued. I was like, wait a second, you're going to give me several $1,000s to ask some of my favorite bands if they want to come to Sacred Heart? This sounds like it could be a great career. Yeah. So I really got involved in the music industry, and one of my first internships was through HBO in New York City, and then my favorite one was with Virgin and Capitol Records. So I would, go to class usually Monday through Thursday, and the times I didn't have classes, which I think in some parts, specifically during that internship, I think it was Wednesday and Friday, I would hop on the train and go down into the city and go into the Virgin Capitol Records office and worked with their A&R reps. And I mean, it was such a great opportunity, because I was like, we're just listening to music all day, and then we would go to shows and concerts at night, and I was like, this can't be a real job. People actually get paid for this. So those were the two main internships that I was doing during Sacred Heart that really fueled my love for this industry. And I'm speaking about industry in broad terms, but it really made me think about what was possible after I graduated from Sacred Heart.
Yeah, no, for sure. Even it's funny that you say because I think a lot of people don't realize what you get paid for.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great point.
And on that, after graduation, where do you end up?
So graduated in 2001. I kind of took the summer off just to enjoy it and enjoy the last moments of my freedom until I had to start working and find an apartment and start paying bills. And I had a family member. It was like a distant cousin related to my dad's girlfriend who worked for CBS News. Never met the guy, but he put in a good word for me. And I was all lined up for an interview. And that interview happened to be the morning of September 11th.
Wow.
So I was commuting from Clifton, New Jersey. I was on a New Jersey transit bus. And we got to about the Lincoln Tunnel and saw the first, what was later, it wasn't known at that time, but it was the first plane that crashed into the World Trade Center. And at that time, nobody knew what was happening. We thought it was a small Cessna plane. At that point, the Lincoln Tunnel had not yet been shut down. And then obviously, I think it was about 10 minutes later, a second plane collided into the World Trade Center. And it was a day I'll never forget. They shut down the entire Lincoln Tunnel, turned the bus around, and basically said, we're dropping you off wherever you got on. And I was a 21-year-old kid holding my resume, nervous and excited to go to CBS News. And I had no idea what to do. I mean, it was one of those crazy moments that felt like you were in the middle of a movie, and it just didn't feel real. And as much of a tragedy as that was, it did lead to me ended up getting hired at CBS News. Because they called me about 2 weeks later and said, we are so busy. We really liked your resume. We want to hire you. We need your help. And as many people can read in the history books and about what happened on that day and the months afterwards, it was an insane period of news and, just what was happening across the country. So that is how I got my first post-Sacred Heart job.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is, I feel like that's like one of the, I don't know, one of the most historic stories that we have heard about first jobs here on What SHU Doing.
For sure.
And so, obviously, there are a couple of things you talked about. One thing that was interesting that you were talking about was when you first started not having the internet and not necessarily, or not having, no, I'm sorry, excuse me. You had the internet, I'm not you got the internet, but the internet not being what it is now.
Yeah.
And I want to parlay that to where you are now, because I believe the internet is quite important for what you do now.
Yeah, everything we do in my current role of as Senior Director of Social News Gathering at CNN is either done through the internet or specifically social media. And that has not something that, just came to fruition a few years ago. It was obviously a lot of the social platforms that started to get popular with Facebook and then, more recently with TikTok. And we couldn't do our jobs without that. But also, if those platforms didn't exist, I wouldn't have the job that I have. And the reason why our job is so important is because people aren't necessarily, let me rephrase that. Everything somebody does in this time is through their phone or social media. That is how they live their life. And there's a record of somebody all over the internet and on social media. And that is just the sign of the times, and it's going to continue to evolve and change, and that might even probably go beyond phones at some point, where it's something new with the technology and AI and become even more advanced. So with my role, it continues to evolve because of the technology, and how people consume news or live their life continues to evolve.
I would love to ask about the evolution of that over the course of your career. As you mentioned, AI, we are living in an ever-changing world. How have you seen it evolve throughout your career?
Yeah, and the way I ended up in my current role, running a pretty big team, is in about 2010, when Twitter existed, Facebook existed, but they weren't super popular at the time. I was in a role where I was just on a straightforward news assignment desk. And I had worked on one of the political campaigns, and I had gone away on vacation and came back, and they said, "You're really good with this Twitter stuff, and we don't understand it." That's what my at the time, I think it was our two VPs had said to me. "We don't understand it, but you do. We need you to just figure it out. It's your new job. So I was a great opportunity and a little bit of luck involved, and I was basically able to carve a role out for myself as a social news gatherer and producer who's able to utilize platforms like Twitter and Facebook as to how we reported and chased the news. And like nowadays at any news organization, there's full teams that do that. But back then it was one person and nobody fully understood how you could capitalize on those communities to actually report the news.
Wow.
Yeah. What about, I know you guys have multiple channels. Like, how do you guys, like, I know you said you have a big team, but, like, so is everything based in Atlanta, like the CNN channel?
No, I mean, we are kind of all over the place. Even domestically, we have a lot of our broadcast operations in New York. You have our headquarters in Atlanta. We have Los Angeles, where we have a bureau. We have a huge DC bureau. Most of that is focused on politics. And then if you think globally, we have bureaus in Hong Kong and London. We have offices in Paris, France, and Africa. I mean, there are locations all over the world because being a 24-hour operation, you want to be able to pull from those resources. So when it's, in the middle of the night in Atlanta, it's middle of the day in Hong Kong.
Yeah, for sure. And then you guys have, like, your social team also, there's people just working 24/7?
Yeah. And there's different parts of the social teams. Right. You have the news gathering side, and then you have sort of the social publishing side who are actually programming the content. So that is a separate team, but it's a team that we partnership very closely with, so that all this great content that's being brought in by my team, you got to have a home for it. So you want to make sure that compelling content gets out on different platforms. And, one of those platforms is obviously CNN TV, but you have CNN Domestic TV, you have CNN International, you have CNN Espanol, you have CNN Max, our streaming service, and then you also have the off platforms like YouTube and TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and you just have so many different locations where people consume the news, because somebody who is probably 60 years old might be going to CNN.com and watching Anderson Cooper on TV. You have audience members that love CNN who are 20 years old. They're probably consuming most of what we do through YouTube and TikTok, and they're probably never turning on CNN on a TV.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is. Like, what challenges and also advantages do you find? Obviously, as you mentioned, social media. Like, we all live on our phones, but that also leads to so many things. Unvetted sources, but there are also advantages because you can now get your message out to people faster. What have you found in your career that, some of the advantages and disadvantages of it?
Well, I would think number one is access to content. You can be anywhere in the world, and it's very easy to get a hold of somebody. You can't do that if you have to call them on the phone, but if you're trying to get a hold of them through TikTok or another social platform, they could respond to you in a matter of seconds and say to you, we talk to people all the time and say, I'm interested. I want to hear more about your content. We would like to get access to your content so we could use it in our reporting. And that happens all the time, where there could be a language barrier, but like, people understand what you're looking for and what you're reporting on. And the great thing is, CNN is a global brand. You go to anywhere in the world, it's probably the most recognizable brand. I mean, you could give them you're with WABC in New York. A lot of people are going to understand that, but you go somewhere halfway across the world, they're going to be like, I don't know what that is. Yeah. But they recognize the 3 red CNN letters, and that's what's it's so great about CNN.
That's amazing. For sure. We want to we could see here. One more serious thing before we get into our segment Paul likes to call Fun Shoe. Hey. We're still workshopping the name. However, one thing we had talked about off camera was, I said, it's probably a busy year for you, obviously considering we're in an election year, and you said it's been a busy 15 years. Yeah. Can you elaborate on that for our viewers?
Yeah, I just think it's a always changing business. We kind of talked about there's different ways people consume the news. But I think also the social platforms have changed the way people understand what happens. And when I'm saying what happens, a lot of what I'm talking about is politics. You have a very divided country when it comes to politics and how people consume things. You also have a lot of, you're always battling misinformation, because as I'm sure you know, somebody might read something on Facebook and go, oh, well, that totally happened. I believe it. But it could be the farthest thing from the truth. So it's always a change in industry, and this goes for any major news outlet, but you always have to convince people what the truth is. And there's a lot of people that, will be fans of CNN who don't like Fox News, and there's fans of Fox News that may not like CNN. So it's really hard to convince people what the truth is, because they always have a predetermined thought as to what is right and wrong. And it's really hard to get that message out. So we are constantly trying to figure out, how can we do a story that will that people will understand, they'll appreciate, and they'll actually get something that they could take away from it and learn from it.
Did anything happen to you guys? Because I know it was like there were some brands when Twitter came out with you could buy the verification. Was there any like fake CNN pages that got verified? People thought it was the real CNN.
Oh, I mean, that has happened plenty of times where somebody, and this goes back several years, where somebody would try to create fake CNN accounts. And I think it probably happens even more now, because you just pay the $8 a month, and, a lot of people can get verified. I mean, several years ago, it was a very stringent policy check to determine whether or not was this person verified. And, we make sure all of our journalists are verified, because when we're reaching out to somebody about, hey, we just heard about this incident that happened and you're a witness to this, we'd love to talk to you. They're going to first say, like, well, I don't know who you are. So it helps when we could put a face to a name, and we could tell them, well, this is who I work for. Here's some of the work that I have done. You could feel safe and confident that, we're going to treat you with respect, and we're not trying to pull a fast one on you.
Yeah, like those first couple of days where you could buy it, and like, I forgot what brands it was exactly, but like stocks went down because like people were making fake ones. It was crazy.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was insane.
It was
insane.
Paul,
are you ready for some fun questions?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, we forgot to ask you at the beginning. Like, is this your first time back at SHU, or?
It actually is the first time I've been back here since I graduated more than 20 years ago.
How many? Was there only like one building when you were here?
It was one small building, and I think Professor Cassenguay said the entire class for the media studies communication was, I think, about 29 people.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, what do you think of it? 'Cause, what parts did you see, and what parts didn't you see?
I mean, I'm blown away. Like I was telling my wife earlier, if you like blindfolded me and dropped me off here, I would say, where the heck am I? This is not Sacred Heart University. I mean, the amount of resources they have put into not only this university as a whole, but this specific college for the media and communications operation. It's incredible, because they did not have this when I was graduating in 2001. You had to work for everything you could get, because the resources aren't here, or weren't here then, and it's incredible the opportunity that is here now.
Yeah, for sure. What were the dorms called when you were?
One was South Hall, the other was West Hall, which I think still exists, but they don't call it that, right?
Yes.
And then
I think that's C number now, I believe.
And then up on Jefferson, was it Jefferson? I forget what they called the Jefferson ones.
The hill, is it on the hill?
Yeah, Jefferson. Yeah, we called it Jefferson Hill, but I forget what the exact name of the dorm was.
What is it now? I lived there when I was a sophomore. It's the nickname for when I was here was J Hill.
Yes, we called it J Hill too.
Oh, okay. I love J Hill.
You lived at North.
I lived at J Hill one time.
Okay, favorite place to dine when you were on campus?
There's probably only one.
There was just the caf. There was
what was it called?
Diner. We just called it the cafe too. I mean, we didn't have a fancy diner like you guys have now.
No, we didn't have that either.
So we can start at
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, wow. Our fun questions are failing us.
No, this has been amazing though. But we appreciate your time, Justin, and we want to be mindful of it. So we appreciate you coming, and thank you.
Thank you, guys. Great chatting with you.
All right, it's been another episode of What You're Doing. We'll see you all next time.